Welcome to PaddyCast. In this episode, we are joined by TV star, radio host, and Irish comedian Patrick Kielty. Now, Patrick, before we get into the podcast here, okay, I just want to let people know how I approached you about this podcast. No, you told me that you lost your nanny due to COVID, and I stupidly thought that your granny had died. I'll tell you what, the exact quote from me was, "Fuck me, mate. Sorry, your granny died." I completely get the wrong end of the stick. North Belfast, and nanny means granny, not childcare.
So you give me, you give me a shout, and then we were in lockdown, and we'd just come back from America, and we were renting a flat, and we hadn't got ourselves properly sorted yet, so we were in a bit of a small flat, and the youngsters were running around. And then the girl that comes in to help out, she took COVID, so we didn't have any child cover. So basically, any podcast or anything that I was doing or Kat was doing, we had to get the youngsters out of the house.
Yeah. Right?
Because they'd have been knocking on the door and, like coming in and all the rest. So that's when I said, look, Paddy, I'm really sorry, we've lost our nanny. and then you're going, geez, I'm awful sorry to hear about your grand. Yeah, it's I could have strung that out a wee bit more, shouldn't I?
You should have said, Paddy, you're a bad man. I'm grieving here, and you're asking me to do your stupid podcast.
Yeah, so finally, we're the Irish joke here now. We just need a third Paddy for this to be two Paddys walk into a podcast. Paddy says to Paddy.
Tell me this, Paddy, right? So obviously, I want to know how you get into comedy, because it's not your average job from a lad from County Down.
Yeah, I mean, I would honestly say, Paddy, and I know you'd probably say it too, that you're funnier than me. It's like I wasn't. I was never somebody who wanted to be on the stage. I was a fella. I was a goalkeeper on the football team at school. I was doing impressions at the back of the bus, and I remember it must have been the mid '80s. So around that time, everybody had a McGuigan impression, and or they were doing the whole Mr. Eastwood thing, and then and Billy Connolly was very big at the time. So they'd have been down the back of the bus, just talking about how it's shite. And Pat O'Hare, who was our PE teacher in St. Pat's in Downpatrick, God rest him, he ended up training the Down team with Pete McGrath in '94. He died shortly afterwards, just fit as a fiddle, and just sadly took a heart attack. And Pat was a massive, massive influence on me. And he came to me and he says, Kielty, I hear you talking a lot of shite down the back of the bus. He says, you're doing the Christmas concert. I says, Pat, I am not doing, the brilliant thing about Pat was at that stage, I was sort of my second last year. And, Pat would talk to you straight. He'd say,
yeah,
you're doing the Christmas. I said, no, I'm not. I says, there's no way I'm doing that. I'm petrified. No way I could get up there. He says, well, here's what it is. He says, if you don't do the Christmas concert, I'm dropping you till the end of the fucking season. Right? And I said to him, I says, you can't do that, sir. That's bribery. He says, it is. He says, well, there's only you and me here, and no one's going to find out this conversation. He said, so get your act together, literally, and get on the stage. And I walked on to the stage, went back, and my dad he promoted show bands and all sorts of stuff whenever he was growing up. I must tell you, I have a Joe Frazier story for you that you might appreciate. Okay. So I went back to him and I says, look, what am I going to do? And he says, look, just lean on the leg that shakes the most. You'll be grand. And I went on and I took the piss out of a couple of teachers and a couple of impressions, and it went really well. If that gig hadn't gone well, Paddy, I would have had no interest right?
Serious.
None of actually getting on stage again. But it actually went well. I was a sub then on the down minor team when they won the All Ireland, and at the banquet in the Burlington on the Monday, what they used to do was each team had to, you know, get up and or one person from each team had to get up and sing a song, and it was all like, you know, like commodities, or you know, it was very trad August crack, and I got up and they gave me the mic, and I was Came me to Falchigal Park Crogie. Hello everybody, welcome to Croke Park. And I basically just like replayed the game, and that was my only contribution to that All Ireland. I still have the medal in the house here.
You were still there.
But as I say, it was Gaelic football that got me into it, and if it hadn't been for that, I wouldn't have bothered.
Like, what did your family think of like your career path, your career path choice? Because like it's not a common career path to seek out. Were they supportive?
I mean, when your old man is promoting dance bands, right, and dance halls and all that sort of stuff, you know, going on stage, it would never have been looked down on. You know, it wasn't like you were going back home when someone was saying, you know, you're going to be an accountant or you're going to be a solicitor. And I mean, I think my dad saw me maybe half a dozen times, maybe on stage at club dinner dances and stuff like that. And then whenever he was killed, that's when I started doing what I was doing as a career. Like, I didn't start doing that until I was maybe, you know, as a career 20. I remember living in University Avenue. I was at Queen's. There was no comedy clubs. Myself and Jackie Hamilton, who runs the Empire, we came up with the idea of having a comedy club. And I remember being in University Avenue, we'd all graduated, and the lads who'd got their degrees were going out and trying to get jobs. I was doing 2 or 3 gigs a week in working men's clubs and different things, you know, like I would have played, I mean, Paddy, I played anywhere. Like, I played the Mountain View on the Shankill Road and the Jamaica Inn in Ardoyne on the same night, the same act, right? And I remember getting left in a car as far as as halfway over, and there was another car picked me up and brought me over to play the Jamaica Inn, and like, I was all pre-ceasefire, and I remember at that point, like, I was just you're getting paid in readies. You thought you were a millionaire, you know, you're making 300 or 400 quid a week in your hand, and the boys that were actually trying to do a proper job and go out and, you know, do the jobs that their degrees said they should do, they were on internships and they weren't making anything.
Nothing.
And I remember having a room in University Avenue. I was in the eaves of the house, and I had one of those double tape decks, you know, like a Sanyo double tape deck that used to record the charts on. You press play and record.
Hit record.
And one of those. Yeah, right. And one of those, and I remember I had enough money to get a car, and I walked and I took a taxi down into Bavarian garages to try to buy a second-hand BMW, and they nearly laughed me out of the place. And it was, you know, well, of course, you know, like, there was sort of humor in me. And then I said, well, sure, like, I'll have that one then. And I remember doing gigs, driving around the place. I don't think I even had a proper duvet on the bed, and I had a second-hand BMW out of Bavarian. So at that point, nobody's going to turn to you and say you're not doing well enough, you know?
Exactly.
So that's how it happened.
Like, how did you manage to get yourself into TV?
everybody thinks that my first TV was on BBC with PK Tonight. The very first series I did was Sus, which was on UTV on a Saturday morning. There was a great producer called Philip Camp who came to the Empire and said, we're doing like a youth series. Would you like to host that? And it was me and Caroline. Who else was on that show? We had there was two or three people that they plucked out to do that show, and that would have been sort of the first, and it was only on a Saturday morning, so you were able just to sort of feel your way, and the name I was struggling there for was actually Jamie Darling, and I was actually going to nearly call him Jamie Dornan. That's what my problem was. So we Jamie Darling, who was a good looking lad, and he was on, so all the girls tuned in, and I talked a bit of nonsense, and that's sort of how I started, and at that time I would have been doing the warm-ups for Jerry Anderson. I'd have been going down there on a Friday night, and I would have been his warm-up guy before he went and did his chat show. And you would have been around cameras, and you would have sort of seen how it all worked. And I don't know how it works for you, but the moment that you realize that you understand the furniture around you, then if everything else outside that furniture gets bigger, it doesn't really matter. If you know how a ring works and you know what you got to do in there, then it doesn't matter if you're fighting at a Commonwealth Games or an Olympics or at Windsor Park or whatever it is. You know how that works. And the minute that I knew how cameras worked, it didn't really matter. I didn't really care then how many people were watching, as long as you knew, as long as you knew the mechanics. Does that make sense?
It does, because what you're talking about there is basically experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You mentioned there, the PK Tonight show. People probably do realize, or probably think it was your first show, because even though it only ran for a year, it was a great success because you got the best newcomer award for that show. Yeah. And then, the Patrick Kielty, I think it's right, Almost Live, was also a great success. You had amazing guests like George Best and Naomi Campbell. Tell me this, was the guest always as nice?
I mean, I remember the Naomi Campbell one was great because she was the first proper A-lister that we had booked on that show. And whenever somebody said she was coming to Belfast, we were sort of thinking, right. Wow. And I remember we had Heidi Klum in that series as well, and Naomi Campbell came over, and we were on in the summer. So what happened was Jonathan Ross would have been on in the autumn and the spring, and they put us on a Friday night in the summer. So I remember Naomi Campbell's PR people, she was lovely, and her PR people requested a police escort. They wanted a police escort and police protection officer for the time she was in Belfast.
Yeah.
And I remember the request went in anyway, and it was around the time of Drumcree. And the RUC press office said, if Naomi Campbell wants to try to lead the march down the Garbaki Road, that's the only way she's getting police protection here. You can tell her to go and swing. So it was that was sort of, it was I'd gone over and I'd done a show on Channel 4, Last Chance Lottery, and that went quite well. And so one of the things, probably the show that was special for me was a lot of people start out and then that we normally have to go somewhere else
Yeah.
to try to make it. And for us to have a show coming from Belfast, you know, on a Friday night, and the first couple of series we did it live. We used to go out onto the street and turn the camera on, and you had the drunks in Shaftesbury Square and stuff. And to show a different face of Belfast. Well, I mean, it wasn't a different face of Belfast to us, because I mean,
Yeah.
we knew that was
We lived it.
Belfast, you know, like but to the rest of the UK, they're thinking to themselves, you know, Belfast is this, and so that it was good to actually to sort of put a wee bit of
Yeah.
local crack on a bigger stage.
Like, live at the Apollo is still obviously a massive show. You know, how great was it to work at that compared to like a TV studio?
There's two types of funny. There's funny and there's funny for money.
Yeah.
Right. And funny for money is really different. It's in a TV show, in a TV studio, you're kind of protected a wee bit. And a lot of TV shows are edited, and you know, even live shows, you can control stuff in a certain way. The thing about Live at the Apollo is, you know, you're pointing a camera at a comedian who's walking out in front of 2,000 people, and you know, it's always that thing of comedians always talk about dying and they talk about killing. So if you talk to a comedian, they go, "Oh, geez, I killed him tonight," you know, and they say, "Oh, geez, I died tonight." And the reason why is that there's no middle ground with stand-up.
Yeah.
You can't force laughter. I mean, even, you know, if somebody gets up and they sing a song and, you know, that's quite nice, and, you know, even if it's a bit out of tune, the kind of social etiquette means that you applaud. Even if you've got family members at a gig and you're not getting laughs, they're not gonna, you can't fake laugh.
Yeah, that's true. That's
so,
true.
and so what happens is, you know, with stand-up, you either win or you lose.
Was there any hecklers in the Apollo?
Huh?
Was there any hecklers in the Apollo?
Yeah, you sometimes got hecklers. Yeah, I remember whenever during my recording, actually, during my recording, there was a heckler and my mic went down, and I ended up having to, you know, you just do what you do with a live gig, and you just, you know, you went and you got another gig, another mic, and you were, you know, taking the piss out of that going down. You were taking the piss out of the guy there, and weirdly, stuff like that, like, you know what it's like. I mean, stuff like that will win over a crowd more than if you're, you know, doing your scripted jokes, you know?
Yeah. Like, how did you find your stand-up tour compared to the TV chat show?
It's that thing of, for a while I didn't do any stand-up, and it was a big mistake, you know?
Yeah.
It was, you need to have that sharpness of actually going on stage and the immediate response of an audience, which keeps your edge. And I was, you know, hosting quite a lot of TV, and there wasn't really time to do many gigs, and I took a bit of time off, and it took a while to sort of come back and sort of get yourself up to speed. There's never, I think now, when I was starting out, a lot of stand-ups, your ambition was to be a stand-up and then get a TV show.
Yeah.
And I think now, thanks to Netflix, and, you know, there's a thing where you can do a stand-up special, and that's nearly more important than hosting TV shows now, in terms of just there's a good audience for stuff like that. And to get that immediate response out of an audience, you know, is, I mean, that there are people who host television, and then there are people who can sort of, I always talk about if you have a turn.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very old school thing. I mean, like, can you sing? Can you dance? Can you tell a joke? If there was no camera here, can you do anything else?
Yeah.
You know, and if you look at a lot of the people that used to host television, they all had a turn. They were all able to do something else. So all of the best hosts were you know, when you look at even, you know, going back to your childhood, you know, you had people like Roy Walker, you had people like Jim Bowen, you had, you know, people like Bob Monkhouse. All those people had the flying hours of being in front of a club audience.
Yeah.
So for me, if you can play the Jamaica Inn and you can play, you know, the Mountain View Club, like live on BBC isn't going to take fizz out of
Well,
you.
that's true, especially Jamaican.
You know, so.
Like I love the comedy scene here. Me and my wife used to go to the Empire
Yeah,
most Tuesdays and watch the likes of G. O'Kane and Cal Murphy.
yep.
Now, Neil Delamere, you might know him, he's from the
I
South.
do. I know Neil. Yeah,
Neil Delamere, along with likes of Jake, are some of my
yeah,
favourite comedians. Now,
yep,
I think it's because of the kind of jokes about Ireland and politics here. Because
yep.
where we're from, it's hard not to laugh about most of the stuff that was on, albeit there's some pretty serious stuff at the core. But it's the likes of our comedians that make us laugh about it. Do you ever keep an eye on the comedy scene here?
Yeah, I do keep an eye on the comedy scene here. I mean, I think there was like one of the things one of the reasons why I actually stopped doing stand up, you know, for a while was, um, you know, we had a ceasefire in '94, and you know, whenever I started to do TV, and I realized that um, what the best comedy is the comedy that an audience can really identify with.
Yeah.
And the audiences here are very much folded in to exactly what's happening in this part of the world. So you have to be very, very careful in terms of being able to, you know, at that point I was living in London and, you know, I wanted to do other things and all of those things, but you always sort of keep an eye on what's going on. And I didn't want to be the guy who was still trying to do the jokes about here when the world
Yeah.
had moved on.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting about it now is that if you look at Blame Game and you look at, you know, a lot of the stuff that's on TV and you look at a lot of the comedians that are coming through here, they have our sense of humor, but they're applying it to the bigger picture.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, like if you look at Jake and Colin and Neil, you know, they'll happily do a Trump gag, or do you know what I mean? And so, but I think I also think there's a northern sense of humor. I mean, if you look at a Belfast sense of humor and a Glaswegian sense of humor and a Newcastle sense of humor, the further north you go on these islands, the more direct the type of humor it is. Whereas it's maybe a wee bit more subtle the further south you go, when you go down to Dublin, go to London, you know what I mean? So there's
I know what you mean, because like I've trained as a boxer in Liverpool and Glasgow, and I can relate so much because we have the exact same sense of humor, so exact same banter and crack. So what you're saying is true. You know what I mean?
You know, it absolutely.
You know, what was your theater experience like? You know, you starred in Murray Jones's play. Was it called A Night in November?
Night in November, yeah.
What was the experience of that like?
That was terrifying, but brilliant. It was it was one of those things where if you're a comedian, you always again, it's a wee bit like that. It's a wee bit like that thing of if you're in the ring and someone's coming at you, you can improvise.
Yeah.
You're going to go, well, actually, you know, my corner says to do this, but actually, here's what's coming my way, so I'm actually going to do something different. Stand-up's a bit like that, in that because you've written the script, and there really is no script, at any point you can take the show anywhere you want. But if you were sent out and someone said to you, okay, you're just going to go, you know, these are the combinations that you're going to throw, and you're not going to do anything different. And if you actually don't throw these combinations in that order, you're going to be marked down. So for me, the play was, these are somebody else's lines that they have written, and you have to do them justice, and you can't deviate. And even if there's a wee titter somewhere that maybe shouldn't come on the night, as a stand-up, you kind of want to follow that laugh. Whereas Whereas, you know, acting, it's, you know, it's brilliant. Like for me, that doing that play changed my life because it showed me the importance of writing and how,
Yeah.
you know, that works. And you know, since then I've written some, like written some radio sitcom myself. And at the minute, I don't know if you can see my steptoe, my steptoe and son booth on here. I'm actually in pre-production here at the minute. I'm back in Dundrum because I'm going to be shooting a movie now in a couple of weeks. So
Brilliant. Oh,
it's
back here,
exciting
home,
to
huh?
actually, yeah. So it's exciting to be doing a wee bit of acting again.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Now, you talk about acting. Talk to me about the documentary, My Dad, The Peace Deal and Me. Now,
Yeah.
I'm sure that was very emotional showing that side of your life.
I mean, what was funny about that, and I don't know what you feel about that, is the thing that made me most nervous about doing that was that because everybody here has lived through it.
Yeah.
Everybody. So for me to stand up there and tell a story that maybe the rest, you know, there's a bigger audience out there that doesn't know, all that was in the back of my head was, you know, the wee voice from back home going, yeah, sure, you know, here he goes again, you know. So
Yeah.
it, you know, I think that was it was a lot easier to do than maybe, you know, some people who haven't, you know, if they hadn't lived here, you know,
Yeah.
if people hadn't lived there, go, oh my goodness, that was amazing, you know, what you did. And really, all I was doing was I was just going around this place and talking to people who had gone through the same stuff that we'd all gone through.
Yeah.
And I think it came at you know, at a good time to sort of take stock on where we are
Yeah.
as a society. You know, I think, you know, there wasn't any, you know, government at Stormont, and there was a bit of limbo going on. And I think one of the things that I went into that documentary with, my whole thing is you can't live in the past, you know, we have to move on. And so, do you want to be the generation to change it in your own lifetime? That's
And
the big thing.
I
So,
think,
you know, a lot of people live with the generation before them on their shoulder, and they say, "Oh, well, I can't move or I can't compromise because that does this person a disservice."
yeah.
And I think I was very, very of the opinion we have to move on and move on quicker.
Yeah.
And then you realize by meeting a lot of people that some people are just, you know, they're hurting a wee bit more than other people, and some
They're
people are a
just
wee bit
different.
more different, Paddy,
Yeah.
and some people are a bit more broken than other people. And so when you're trying to move a society along, it's that challenge between leading and, you know, leaving people behind.
Yeah. Definitely. Um, going something more positive now. Um, like what so far would you say, you know, has been the most enjoyable part of your career?
Um, I think probably um, the night that was very special for me was whenever Special Olympics came to Ireland, and I was allowed to, you know, host the ceremony in
That was
Croke
in
Park.
Dublin, wasn't it? Yeah, Cook Park.
In Dublin, and it went live to millions and millions of, you know, countries around the world, and every village in Ireland, north or south, you know, took a country. And I filmed a thing with Mary McAleese recently, and she was talking about it. And I mean, that was a time where, you know, we finally had peace up here. You know, Ireland was really starting to, you know, put itself onto a bigger stage.
Yeah.
The idea that Nelson Mandela was coming to Croke Park to light a flame, and you know, you had backstage at Arnold Schwarzenegger and Muhammad Ali. I mean, I got to meet Muhammad Ali, you know, which was
Crazy.
just like whenever his manager said to me, Muhammad thought you did a very good job tonight. Do you want to meet him tomorrow? And at that point, I said, yeah, no problem. You know, here's my number. And the phone went at 10 o'clock the next morning. And he said, hey, it's Muhammad's manager. Can you be in the Barclay Court in half an hour? I'm like,
What?
I can barely make it to the bog here in half an hour. So pulled myself sideways out of it and got to the Barclay Court, and up you go into the lift, and there you are. You're suddenly in his suite, and Bundini he's there, and his wife's there, and there's only maybe half a dozen of us, and he couldn't really, you know, his speech wasn't great,
Yeah,
but he was, you know, he was still really charismatic, you know, and remember he did a thing where he got everybody around the table and he put the remote control of the TV on the coffee table. And he said, everybody, we're gonna make it, elevate, levitate. And he had everybody holding hands, chanting, levitate, elevate. And he kept this all going for about, you know, 2 or 3 minutes. And we were all, he says, look at it, concentrate, look at elevate. And we're all sort of in this like trance. And then he just goes, April Fool, no one can do that. No one can do that. You fools, you fools.
Oh my God.
And as I say, it was funny because I finally, you know, I got to meet Muhammad Ali, and my old man, he met Joe Frazier. So we have the double bubble.
Burn up the two greatest heavyweights of all time.
Yeah. So Joe decided he wanted to do a singing tour in the early 70s. Did you ever hear this?
No. Or in Ireland or America or?
So when you're the heavyweight champion of the world and you decide you want to sing, well, nobody tells you that you can't.
Exactly.
So, and on a scale of 1 to Tyson Fury, I mean, he was probably about a 3 vocally, you know. And he decided he wanted to do this Motown album. So Joe does this Motown album, and then he decides he wants to tour. And so they book him out around the UK and around Ireland, and my old fella bid for him. And my dad used to run a dance hall in Hilltown, which, as they say in County Down, is like just buck goat and stone ditches. Like there's not a lot going on around Hilltown. So the idea of Joe Frazier, he was the champion at the time, right? And he decided he wanted to do this singing tour. So they bring him in. My dad pays a fortune, puts the ticket prices, you know, 3 times what they normally are for Philomena Begley or Brian Call and the Buckaroos or whoever it is. And Hilltown's packed, absolutely packed. And they put Joe Frazier on the back of a coal lorry. Because, I mean, that's, you know, what they used to do, you know, and they put the ropes around the coal lorry. And it took him 3 hours getting down the main street. And got into the hall in Hilltown. There was nobody there. Because everybody wanted to actually see Joe Frazier, but nobody wanted to.
Lorry?
Yeah, nobody wanted to hear him sing. So came to the end of the night, and the old fella was about to lose the shirt, you know, and he'd got like, you know, 2 or 3 bouncers from the local GA club, and you had Joe with all his, you know, all the Detroit, you know, gang. And my dad said, look, Joe, I'm really sorry, we can't pay you. You broke your contract. And because Joe didn't sing, Joe, like it took him that long to get on stage. He didn't go on stage to 12:30. So my old fella, he says, Joe, look, you were booked for the 17th and you didn't go on to the 18th, so you broke your contract. And I mean, there's nothing we can do about it. And apparently all hell broke loose between, you know, these GEA bouncers and Joe's people. I think what happened was they settled for half money in cash. So it worked out all right. But that was Joe. Yeah,
I
Joe.
cannot believe Joe Frazier was due to play in Hilltown of all places.
Yeah, Hilltown. Yeah,
It's
he
crazy.
did play. Like the gig went ahead. Like my old fella lost the shirt on it. So
Like, come back to a different matter. Like, is it hard like to switch off, like, from your public or sorry your private career life? Sorry, your public life, um, with the cameras and mics in your face, and then when you home to your family, is it hard like to switch off? If you get me.
I mean, it's dead easy. Like the brilliant thing about coming back to Dundrum, and as you know here, I mean, nobody cares,
Yeah,
So I mean, like I'm not
which
very
is good.
famous, but I'm not very famous. But I mean, even like somebody like Liam Neeson, I mean, like there's that great story about Liam Neeson bringing Robert De Niro up to Cushendall fishing,
It's crazy.
and the two of them go into the pub up there anyway, and Robert's got the hat on, and Liam goes in, God bless everybody in the house, with 2 pints and 2 Bushmills, and they're all sitting talking, a couple of old boys at the bar, and they're talking all night to them, and where were you fishing, and Robert De Niro, Liam calls him Bobby. He says, oh, this is Bobby here. Tell me now, Bobby, where were you fishing there the day? Well, here you shouldn't have been on that bank there, so you'll never catch anything there. You should have been a wee bit further up, and they're chatting fishing the whole night. And Liam goes to the toilet, and the boy says to Robert De Niro, and tell me, Bobby, what do you do yourself? And De Niro actually thought that everybody thought that, he thought he was winding him up because, like, he thought, well, everybody knows I'm Robert De Niro, but being you're in Northern Ireland, nobody gives a fuck, So he says, what do you do yourself, Bobby? He says, I'm in the same game as Liam. He says, all right. He says, so you talk a load of shite too, then. And I mean, it's just like that's
oh
how
my
it is
God.
here,
Tell me this, Pi, did you actually really fly the whole way to LA to surprise your now wife?
I did. I was in the Mara Inn here, not far up the road, and had a few old scoops on me, and decided to jump in the plane, old fat head, got the taxi, Donner taxis down the road here, out of the Georgie Best into Heathrow, with a 8-hour time. The flight's 11 hours, but you get 8 hours back on the time change. So
yeah.
I was able to make it for lunchtime. And I mean, as you know yourself, Paddy, the key to life is to find a woman out of your league and convince her she isn't. So
you done all right.
Well, I mean, I think we're both punching, aren't we? So
here, tell me this: what does the future hold for you? I know, like, the coronavirus has messed everything up, but what? Obviously, you're doing a new film. But have you anything else to say or anything going?
Yeah, I'm going to be. Well, the whole plan was like, we were due to come back from America. The whole thing was we were going to come back from America, throw the boys, into school over here, get them to see their family, and we spent the entire year homeschooling them and seeing family on Zoom. So whenever all of this is over, it sort of feels like the pause button's been taken off. Thankfully, this film that has been in the pipeline for a wee while, that's going to be happening end of this year, start of next year. I've got another stand-up show that I'm writing, which is the BBC are recording in March, and then we'll probably get back to doing some touring after that. I'm going to be doing some radio for the BBC in the new year. So it's really like, it's quite nice. It's quite nice now to sort of be at the point where you're being offered nice things, and you're in a position. I'm very, very lucky with it. You're in a position that you can sort of do the stuff you want, and the stuff that you don't want, you don't need to do. It's quite nice.
We're going to finish off here with a quick fire round, okay?
Go on then. Yeah.
If you could choose a different profession, what would it be?
Architect.
Architect. Your
And
favorite.
the only reason the only reason I'm saying that is because, if I was the architect, the University of Ulster, where, your Ironman and Brothers are putting the glass in, that would come in on budget. I'm just saying so.
How do you know? How do you know that there? How do you know the glass?
Yeah. You never know who you're talking to.
You know what he was, Paddy. Oh, brilliant! I actually trained like I lived in Coney Island, not far from Patrick.
Is that right?
That's pretty well. That's my first ever house down there.
Wow.
And I used to train a family down in Clock and Ardglass. So I go up in Ardglass every weekend. So
yeah, so I mean, it's so you're the Belfasty blow-ins down there, then, are you?
Well, my cousins are, not me.
See?
Your favorite comedian you've ever worked alongside?
I suppose the one that, favorite comedian. I mean, I remember playing the Royal Albert Hall one night with Joan Rivers and doing Live at the Apollo with her. Like, I mean, that was. I can tell you this. It was a Prince's Trust gig, and the Prince Charles in the Royal Box was, we're up there, and I was on just before her, and when you're playing in front of royalty, there's a lot of people that sort of, and I just think everybody eats farts, and do you know what I mean? So I'll just do my act. So I went out anyway, and dropped a couple of F-bombs, and blah blah blah, and did the act. And I'm walking off stage, and it went really well, and I'm walking off stage to the Albert Hall, and Joan Rivers is coming out past me. She goes, "Patrick, thanks so much for saying fuck. I can now say cunt."
Oh, brilliant.
So you'll have to bleep that. But what does it say? That was a favorite. But even just starting off, I mean, I remember like being on a bill with Frank Carson in Harlan and Wolff Welders whenever I was starting out, and just even being in his presence, and it went well. Like it went really out. It did really well that night. Did you come off? And he goes, "I thought you were very good tonight, young Kielty. You made me laugh once."
Brilliant.
2 more legs.
Here, did you have any pre-gig superstitions?
Pre-gig superstitions. Everything sort of has to be. The dressing room has to be tidy
Or organized.
Unless everything's in its place, I can't go on. It's a weird thing that I can't just go. It's I have to sort of put my head. It's strange, Do
you have a favorite quote or a favorite saying?
Jesus, there's lots and lots of favorite sayings. It's I mean, at this stage now, it's sort of I'm not as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as ever was. So.
Do you have? Actually, sorry, this is not even this is a sports question. Your favorite sports person, past or present?
Well, I mean, that's the reason why I'm doing this tonight, Paddy. So.
Muhammad Ali. No.
It's, I think when you meet George Best, it's sort of.
I suppose,
yeah. I mean, that was sort of. I mean, that was a big one, but it was interesting just to see how nervous he was before he went out.
Serious?
He was very, very nervous. I mean, like he was back in Belfast, and you just assume that when you meet somebody like a superstar like that, But I remember meeting Maradona at Soccer Aid. He was on our team on the rest of the world team, and he was great because he used to pretend that he couldn't speak English. because all the English only wanted to talk about, you know, this goal in the game.
Yeah, God.
Nobody wanted to talk about the other goal where he actually danced around them and took it like 50 yards up and scored the greatest goal of all time. So he just said K, whenever any of the English players were actually talking to him, and then whenever he was with the rest of the world, he was just chatting away to us, you know.
Yeah, brilliant.
In English, and because I was the sub keeper, so what they do is, you know, they throw the professional keeper on in the first half to keep it sort of tight. Then you throw the numpty on. He might throw one in over his head, you know. So I was like right behind Maradona in the tunnel at Old Trafford, and he hadn't done his boots up, and I wasn't sure what to do, and I wasn't sure I was going to trip on the way out. And I tapped him. I says, Diego, I says, just let you know you haven't done your boots up. He turned around and he says, you think I lace my boots for this shit? He played the whole half.
Seriously?
He played the whole half with just like the laces lying open, you know.
Brilliant. Lastly, your best or worst joke?
Best or worst joke? I mean, it's I have a lot of very, very bad jokes, Paddy. I mean, as you know, stuff that is, you know, potentially unbroadcastable. What I'm finding now is that it's funny because the youngsters are now telling me jokes. You know, so you've actually, I'm now getting like 5-year-olds. You know, the type of jokes that I've been told now is like, they come up to me the other day and says, Daddy, why are pirates called pirates? I says, don't know. And he says, because they are.
Angling biscuit jokes.
You know, it's
I
suppose at the minute we should probably end it as we started, Paddy, which is Rihanna visiting her granny in the nursing home. Oh, Nana, what's my name? Oh, Nana.
God bless her granny anyway, Patrick.
God bless my granny. God rest her. I mean, she's only dead 20 years, Paddy, so I mean, God rest.
Listen, Paddy, thanks very much for taking part of the podcast. You're unbelievable.
No bother, kid. Look, really enjoyed it.